Hi boys and girls, welcome to math. This week in math, we're continuing to talk about addition, and today we're going to do a fun challenge. I'm going to be drawing something, and you're going to help me to figure out what some totals are, okay? So we're going to work together. It's kind of a word problem that we're going to be doing, or 3 different word problems, and I'm going to do it by drawing a picture, okay? And in the picture, you can kind of try to figure out what I'm drawing, okay? So now, I'm going to get started. And I would like you to get a piece of paper and a pencil or a crayon or marker, and you're going to number it 1 through 3. So let me show you what I mean. It's like this. Imagine this is the piece of paper. Kind of messy in it, but you kind of get the idea. And go ahead and put your name on top up here, and then write 1 with a little dot after it, 2, and then 3. Okay? Now, what you're going to do is you're going to answer 3 questions. And the answer you're going to write right over here. So you're actually going to write a number here, you're going to write another number here, and 1 here, okay? All right, boys and girls, so I'm going to get started. Let me go ahead and erase this. I'm going to tell you a story about Bob and Ted. This story is about Bob and Ted, and they are friends that decided to go camping. Bob and Ted decided to go camping, okay? So they went to this area where there is a nice big lake. Okay, so here's kind of a view above of the lake. If you look on a map, you'll see lakes or ponds look just like this. Now, it's a lake. It's not a huge lake, but it's a pretty deep lake. Okay, and so they decided to put their tents right down here. So Bob set his up here. Sorry, it's kind of crooked. It's hard to write online, but there you go. You get the idea. There's another tent right here for Ted. Okay, so Bob's tent is here. Got a little door in front, and Ted is here. All right, so they pitched their tents. They had a nice little cookout over here, and then the first night they went to sleep, okay? So then they went to sleep and they heard something the first night. They heard like a flapping sound. Bob jumped up out of his tent. He opened the door and he said, "Ted, do you hear that?" And Ted said, "Yeah, I hear it. What is that?" And so they said, "I don't know," but Bob said, I think it's coming from the lake. So he said, "Let's go check it out." So Bob went right up here to the lake. And Ted went right over here to the lake too. And they looked. They were standing here and they looked. But they couldn't see anything because it was too dark. So Bob said, "Let's go back asleep and go back to our tent. And we'll try to figure out in the morning. Let's go." So they went back to their tents and they went to sleep. The next morning, they walked out of their tents, came over to the lake, and they couldn't see anything that looked unusual. It just looked normal. Well, they went around the lake all the way up here and they found a trail. And this trail headed right up this way. Now, there was a pond up here, okay? It's kind of a small body of water. There's a pond. And in the pond, they could see something in the middle. Well, not quite in the middle, right up here, okay? And they had heard that when they find a pond that has a big lily pad in the pond, that's nearby where there's a nice little store. Now, this store is different because this store is actually in a tent. This is Old Man Jenkins' store. This is his general store out in this wilderness area. And he has a tent right here. Well, they knocked on the door, which is hard to do with a tent. They knocked on the flap, 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 flap. And they said, "Excuse me," Bob said, "is this Old Man Jenkins' store?" And the old man came out and said, "Hello there, you two. How are ya? How can I help you?" Well, Ted said, "Mr. Jenkins, Old Man Jenkins, we need something to see at night. And we didn't bring a flashlight. Do you have any flashlights?" He went directly back into his tent and came out with a big, huge flashlight. Just one. He said, "This is all I got. What do you think? $20. So Bob reached in his pocket, pulled out $20, gave it to Old Man Jenkins, and Old Man Jenkins backed away into his tent and said, "Have a great day." And Bob and Ted went down here, around the lake, and they went back into their tent. And Bob kept the flashlight. Well, after they ate that night, they went back into the tent and went to sleep. That night, they heard flap, 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 flap. And then they came back out over to the lake. Bob turned on the flashlight, and he could see all over the lake. Well, he saw 1, 2 birds, okay? And then he saw another one, on this side of the lake. So first he saw 2, and then he saw 1 more. Now, boys and girls, I'm going to write that right here. I'm going to write 2, and then I'm going to write 1 more. Now, how many is that total? 2 and 1 more is how many? Now, I'm going to put the symbols. I'm going to put the plus sign, and I'm going to put the equals. So 2 and 1 is equal to what number? Now, on your piece of paper, write that right there, number 1. Okay, so your first, where you wrote number 1 on the left side, write the answer. 2 plus 1 equals what? Well, they couldn't believe what they saw because these birds are really big and really colorful. But they said, well, let's go back in our tent and let's figure out, maybe we can try to catch these birds tomorrow. Well, the next day, they went exploring down over here. And then they came back for dinner. After they had lunch, they had dinner, they went back in their tents. And they heard again the flop, 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 flop. They ran out and they looked and they saw, this time it was more. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 birds flying. And then, on the outside, up here, and actually over here this time, they saw 2 more. So first they saw 5, okay, and then they saw how many more? They saw 2 more. So 5, and remember we're going to count the first, or we're going to say, or write down a greater number first, and then the smaller number. So boys and girls, show me 5 fingers. Good, 5 fingers on one hand. That's all your fingers on one hand. Now show me 2 more. Can you? Good. Okay, so 5 and 2 more equals what? I'm going to put the symbols. 5 plus 2 equals what? Okay, now that's going to be on number 2. On your piece of paper, on number 2, remember you had 1, 2, 3, and I'll go ahead and put it right over here. Just as a reminder, we wrote our name, and then 1, 2, and 3 on our paper. 1, 2, and 3 with the little dots. This is their second answer, so this answer should go right here. So 5 plus 2 equals what? Goes right here. The first one you put up here. Okay? Okay. Now, boys and girls, they went back into their tent. They said, this is crazy. We don't have anything to catch these birds. But tomorrow we'll bring out something really amazing. This is Ted talking to Bob. And Bob said, well, what did you bring? He says, I'll show you. So they went back in their tents. They went to sleep. The next morning they woke up. They had breakfast. They had some donuts for lunch that Bob had brought and he forgot about in his backpack. And then they had dinner. Well, they had a stomachache when they had dinner because you can't eat donuts for lunch. Well, they had some nice catfish for dinner and some rice, and they felt better. And then they came out at night when they heard the flap, flap, flapping, and they saw, this time, they saw over here. 1, 2, 3 birds. And then over the lake, they saw 1, 2. Okay? Now, they saw 3. I'm going to write 3. And then I'm going to write 2. All right, boys and girls. So how many is that? Total. 3 and 2 more equals how many? Now, show me 3 fingers on your hand. Good. All right. Now, add 2 more. Good. 3 plus 2 equals what? That answer, you need to write on number 3 on your paper. Well, Ted pulled out the biggest net you have ever seen. And he began to scoop up the birds. But then more flew out, and more flew out. Oh my goodness, more flew out. And he noticed they were all flying from this crop of trees. It was a forest. And what kind of bird was it? Can you see it? There it is. I don't know what kind of bird that is, but that's what they saw. A bird with a big body, a fluffy tail, kind of looks like a chicken with duck feet. They called it a chicken duck turkey bird. Well, they caught several. They brought it home, and they became famous for finding this bird, the most unusual bird in the world. Good job, boys and girls. Now, you should have your 1, 2, 3 answers ready. Go ahead and take a picture and upload that. and thank you for joining me today on this adventure in math.